We now have video prior to the fight involving former NHL player Paul Bissonnette. This piece of footage, however, is another example of the 6 alleged attackers causing problems with other members of an establishment in the state of Arizona. The Gary and Dino Show wrote, some members of the same group are seen assaulting male and female staff at a Phoenix golf club. Punches are thrown. Violence ensues. Overall, just a terrible look, and one that keeps on trending in the news. Here was Biz on his podcast, Spittin Chiclets.
So let's start with the top guy, top left, John Carroll. So John Carroll is brother to William Carroll, the old that I knocked out with my right hook. And John Carroll is actually one of the guys that was trying to boot my head off my shoulders like he was kicking a 50-yard field goal. I knocked out his inbred, coked out brother, William Carroll. And moving along here, Sean Daly.
Let's pause here. Sean Daly was this guy.
If you are permitted to return back to the state of Texas to continue residing while this case is pending, at least for now, are you able to return for any court dates, including this status conference now scheduled on December 10?
If I have to be, I can try to make it.
As we played this video obtained by TMZ Sports last week, this was him. This was an insane moment that we tried to point out at the time. Dude was basically saying he's too busy for a court appearance, which is a wild defense. More.
This little who went in front of the judge, who basically insinuated he's not going to be coming back for his December 10th court date, until she was stunned by his response and was like, no, you have to come back. That's that little Sean Daly. One of the other young, Henry Mesker, was one of those 4 guys past the dumpster that was throwing punches and kicks. I feel a little bad for this old, I don't know how he got roped in all this, Edward Jennings, but we're going to uncover a little bit of his past and a little bit of his family matters a little bit later. The main guy that I would love to get locked in a room with is this Danny Bradley. I didn't know any of these guys' history, right? My assumption was these guys were on a golf trip. They had one too many cocktails. They ended up coming over to Houston's. It was the wrong setting for them. And they just had poor judgment, were being complete. And then we ended up getting into the debacle that we got into. Well, sure. Not only a day later, maybe a little after 24 hours, this gentleman online, he goes by the name of Shay Stevens.
Pause here. Let's talk about Shay, because my man is doing the Lord's work here. So he'd look into the matter and conclude in a Twitter thread. By the way, buckle up. This is crazy. When I started digging into these guys, my interest was piqued by the huge number of paving and construction businesses tied to them. There were so many that are widely available online through news reports. Digging into their businesses, I noticed they really don't care about bad reviews or being called out. Why? Because a lot of their listed business addresses are fake. They use addresses of people not even involved in their scams. He'd go on to say their whole MO is traveling town to town, hitting people and suppliers with sketchy contracts and scams at the door. Furthermore, Shay types, they're part of a larger community or cult called Irish Travelers, known for scams and shady dealings. Shay would link to the video I'm about to show you, where they allege they were scammed by those potentially involved in the biz fight.
Today we are dropping off this freight trailer for Mr. Jennings, the owner of Affordable Road Drive. He promised to pay us today at the delivery, and he had emergency situation today, and he had some problems with his bank. Hey, we are humans, right? We understand, but he promised us to pay today. Either way, in my country, man keeps his word. So I will be expecting a payment of $3,700 from Mr. Jennings.
So let's go to 2008. A news article wrote, some travelers, nomadic clans of Irish, English, and Scottish descent, roam the country soliciting construction jobs and home repair work, bilking people out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, according to police, and a traveler who agreed to speak to the outlet on condition of anonymity. That informant would say they made around $100,000 a week, and this article is outdated, to be very clear. The informant continues. It is handed down through the generations. How do you know it's wrong? It's your way of life. You are never taught it's wrong. It is what you were raised to do. We're raised to believe everyone is a mark, as in a target for them to make money off of, wrote the Gainesville Sun. Travelers often speak a secret language, marry within the family, and make their fortunes on the open road. They continue. The work is usually substandard. A lot of the time, it is certainly substandard, as I saw from many local news reports. And according to the informant, the paint might be watered down, the driveway paved with a thin layer of asphalt. Once they get their money, they're out of town. And that is prior to the homeowners or people that paid them to do the work realize that they have been conned. Then AZ family investigated, and they found a very, and I emphasize, very troubling connection between the men who call themselves the Irish travelers and a killing that happened with a Texas housekeeper. After that killing, Edward Jennings' brother-in-law, I believe, took out a life insurance policy on the housekeeper. That's kind of fishy, isn't it? AZ family would learn through public records Jennings has ties to the Gorman family, who was ultimately responsible for the killing of Anita Fox. Here's a graphic that they ran in their news segment. Authorities would search for the attacker, and Little Joe would admit to driving his father, Big Joe, to go forward with the killing. Big Joe would never be apprehended. And you might be thinking, why? Well, he died in a motel room of what was described as natural causes. This occurred just prior to his arrest. Those photos would be published by AZ family. The Gormans were about to cash in, they report, on a $1 million insurance policy, life insurance policy. They'd go on to put in their piece that Little Joe took a plea deal for conspiracy to commit murder. Deanna Boyd, formerly with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, where it has been reported some of the family members live all within a certain radius of each other, which we'll get into momentarily. Well, Deanna Boyd put in the work investigating the Irish travelers and told AZ family they fly under the radar. So all of this attention is taking them by surprise and causing them some fear, she would say. And let me be clear before I go further, okay? I don't think they realized, even in the aftermath, of what they are up against. Because as toxic as some within Barstool may be, led by Dave Portnoy, who is very clear, a toxic leader, what you have is a great force meeting an immovable object. And Paul Bissonnette, a.k.a. Biz Nasty, that Spittin Chiclets podcast, if you don't know, is on the Barstool Sports Network. So they have an army behind them. How this will play out, we have to wait and see. But what we know is this. Biz did the right thing by stepping in. He is going on the attack, and he will not relent. He wants to get back to these guys that were, according to him, jumping the waitstaff at Houston's. And when he jumped in to defend them, they jumped him and boot-effed or kicked him in the head, the neck area, what have you. So Sean Daly, whose mugshot is seen here, was in the news for fleeing the scene when he and others allegedly attacked the former NHL player. He would be arrested at his hotel room per court docs. The hotel, rather, per court docs. I'm not sure if it was in the room. From the Toronto Sun. Daly also provided police with an allegedly false home address. That should also be a theme throughout. An industrial lot linked to one of his businesses. He was also found to be carrying a military ID, though it turned out to be fraudulent. Daly has also been charged with forgery. On that military ID When police searched him, found it, and questioned him on it, he reportedly admitted that it was fraudulent, but he wouldn't go any further into detail. Then we get to Madeline Toogood, a relative to at least one of the men involved in the Biz fight. In 2003, Toogood made national news when she was seen on video in a parking lot violently beating her 4-year-old child. After she surrendered to police, she was charged with giving them false addresses, which tracks with previous accounts from her family. Her husband, John, at the time faced theft charges in Montana. AZ family would conclude Toogood, like others in her family, live in the Fort Worth, Texas area. They note she's only 2 doors down from Carol, 3 away from Daly's brother, and close by to Henry Mesker's pops. Daly and Carol, prior to nuking their respective Twitter accounts, allegedly wrote the N-word on their pages. Now, let me be clear. There's more to this story, and more is unfolding. And there are a lot of allegations that are being flown around here. But if there is a constant, it seems to be that they are scamming people and conning people with these construction jobs, pavement jobs, roofing, etc. And they're flaunting it to a degree. I saw some pictures where they were playing at a prestigious golf course with ridiculous views. I believe one of them was also photographed at the Super Bowl. So there is a lot here. There are some allegations and some news reports that printed things that I cannot even discuss because it goes very far. But what I will say is this is a story that is evolving. And when there are more updates, we will bring them to you. For now, I want to give a shout out to Paul Bissonnette for standing up for what's right. I want to give a shout out to Whistleblower CA on Twitter, Shay, for digging all of this up. And I am really, really curious to see where this case and this story goes from here.